My life changed forever when I became a single dad who saved a beaten mother and her child. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started like any other. The sun poured in through the window, warm and bright. But then, a loud crash shattered the calm. My heart raced as I stumbled outside. The noise drew people like moths to a flame. There she was, a woman crumpled against a car, her face split open, blood tracing her jawline in a chaotic pattern. Her child, wide-eyed and trembling, clung to her leg as if she were a shield against the world. Panic surged through me. I could feel the weight of everyone's stares, the thick tension hanging in the air, cutting like a knife. I ran toward them, my pulse quickening with every step. Why was no one helping? I scanned the crowd. Faces twisted in shock, whispers coursing through the small gathering. I knew I had to act. My hands shook, but I reached her, knelt beside her, and took in the chaos, her clothes torn, bruises blooming like dark flowers across her arms. The child's small hands were smeared with dirt and tears, a silent scream echoing between us. A strange warmth enveloped me, an instinct to save them crashing over my senses. What happened? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, cracking under the weight of the moment. She looked at me, her eyes filled with fear and gratitude all at once. "He won't stop," she choked out, the words slipping from her lips like a confession. The threat lingered in the air, heavy and palpable. Suddenly, I was aware of heavy footsteps approaching. I turned, frantically scanning for the danger she spoke of. My heart thudded in my chest as I thought of the life I had before, the simple routines, mundane worries. But now, here I was, tangled in someone else's nightmare. The weight of obligation pressed down on me fiercely, a responsibility I never anticipated. As the shadows loomed closer, I stood. I had to protect them both. But how could I do that when I could barely protect myself? Where would this lead us? The air grew colder as the confrontation drew near. The crowd became more restless, breaths catching in throats, collective fear palpable under the evening sky. Everything around me blurred. I looked into her eyes, searching for strength. At that moment, I felt the gravity of possibility. Could I really save them? Could I unravel the threads of their tortured lives, stitch them together with hope? There was a flicker of something deep within her, a spark of defiance, or maybe just desperation. Would I stand strong? Would the truth destroy me before I even had a chance to fight back? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I dove into the moment, my heart thrumming in my chest like a wild animal. As the source of danger approached, a figure draped in shadow, face obscured, I felt adrenaline surge through me. The world slowed. Uncertainty clawed at my insides. What if it was worse than I feared? I would do anything to shield them. But what kind of man was I, really? "Stay close," I whispered to the woman, my eyes never leaving the oncoming threat. She nodded slightly, her eyes wide with terror. But that flicker from before, a shared understanding that we were in this together, glimmered again, if only for an instant. Just as I prepared to confront the shadows, a voice sliced through the tension. "In here, now," a stranger was yelling, his voice urgent and commanding. He called from a nearby diner, beckoning with a wild wave of his hand. I hesitated, calculating the ramifications of blindly leading them toward what might be safety or another trap. But the danger still approached, and I could see the terrified look on her child's face. Turning my head, I urged them to move with a firm but gentle gesture. As we sprinted toward the diner, every ounce of instinct screamed at me to keep them safe. The doors swung open, my heart pounding as a rush of warm air enveloped us inside. The faint scent of fried food and coffee mingled with anxiety, but we were momentarily shielded, hiding from the storm. I glanced back, catching fleeting shadows that loomed outside. "Who are you?" I turned to face the gentleman who had called us in, a burly man with warm eyes, his hands gripping the counter for support, as if ready to take on whatever danger lurked out there. "I'm just a guy trying to help," he said, his voice deep but calming. "What is happening out there?" I demanded, urgency filling every syllable. My instincts told me the truth was far more sinister than it appeared. He sighed, knowing. "You must have seen the bruises. They're coming for her. It's a dangerous game she's entangled in. The man who hurt her doesn't let go easily." His gaze shifted to the woman and her child, who huddled together, seeking comfort. "But there's always hope." Hope? I felt its weight, pressing heavily against my chest. What did it mean in this context? But in the depths of despair, a flicker ignited, uncertain but vibrant. I shifted my focus, looking at the mother. "You're stronger than you think," I said softly, hoping my words could reach the shadows that had clouded her spirit. For a moment, she leaned into my side, as if seeking the strength I wanted to offer her. But the moment of connection shattered as the door burst open, bringing the looming figure with Ida's shape I recognized now. My stomach twisted in confusion and dread. It was him, the monster who had hurt her before, his fury apparent as he cast his glance across the room searching for her. "Get away," I yelled, my voice trembling with defiance. The force of my fear morphed into a protective rage. A primal instinct surged as I took a step forward, positioning myself between the abuser and the vulnerable lives I vowed to guard. Everyone around us froze, the diner stilling as eyes widened with shock. Even the killer's gaze shifted momentarily, surprise sparking in his eyes. "You think you can protect her?" he sneered, a harsh laugh reverberating through the space. "She belongs to me. You should have stayed out of this." "Not anymore," I shot back, my voice steady despite my trembling insides, my heart racing as I fought the wave of doubt trying to pull me under. He took a step closer, and I refused to yield, feeling the weight of 100 eyes on us, the urgency of the situation escalating. But just as the tension reached its peak, I heard a small voice rise above the chaos. "Mommy, please don't let him hurt us." My heart broke all over again. The child's plea reverberated in the air, fueling my resolve, but it intensified the fear for their safety. I swore then that I wouldn't let their story end here. I would fight for them even if I stood alone. In that moment, the weight of my past, my own vulnerabilities and failures collided with my burning desire to protect them, igniting a storm of conflicting emotions. Maybe this was my chance to rewrite my life's narrative. And then an unexpected kindness flickered from behind the counter. The cook, a stout woman with flour-dusted hands, stepped forward. "Ill help," she declared, her voice fierce as she gathered kitchen equipment, eyes locked on the approaching threat. There was that flicker, a glimmer of hope stitching together the seams of despair. My heart pounded in my chest. Together, we stood on the brink of confrontation, ready to either protect or perish. But because I had crossed that line, one question consumed my thoughts. Was solidarity enough to combat the dark forces closing in on us? Or would the truth of our entanglement unravel everything before we could find the light? And as if the universe were answering my unspoken fears, the door swung open again, a new shadow entering the fray, shrouded in a cloaked disguise of uncertainty. My breath caught in my throat. Who was it? What would their arrival mean for all of us in this suffocating moment of impending doom? Panic gripped the diner like a vice. The newcomer moved slowly, allowing just enough light to catch the edges of their form. A tall figure, hooded, their frame cloaked in an enigmatic blend of desperation and determination. The sinister atmosphere twisted, but rather than retreating, the cook stepped closer to me, ready to act. "Look," the burly man said, his eyes darting from the newcomer to the looming shadow of the abuser. "We need to decide. Either we confront this now, or we slip away while we can." The dynamic within the diner shifted as whispers padded through the air, colliding with tension. I could hear the thudding of my heart, pulsating with fear and dread, yet amidst the chaos, a flicker of resolve ignited within me. The weight of the woman's pain pressed against my chest, but so too did her silent gratitude. It served as my compass, the direction toward which I had to steer our collective fate. "Please," I whispered to the mother, catching her eye, "stay close to me. Whatever happens, I won't let anyone hurt you or your child again." A silent promise anchored me, and she gave one barely perceptible nod, her expression unreadable yet tinged with a flicker of hope I desperately clung to. The cloaked figure took a step forward, Murmurings floated around us as the patrons considered retreating. "You need to listen." The newcomer's voice sliced through the clamor, gravelly yet oddly soothing, indicating they possessed information that changed everything. The room hushed, all eyes drawn to the riddle of their presence. "I know what he's done," the figure said. Their hand reached for the hood, slowly pulling it back to reveal a face lined with scars both external and internal. They had a history. I could sense it. "I'm here to help. But this must end now." A collective gasp echoed. The abuser's eyes narrowed, realizing this intrusion might be more than just a chance encounter. "You shouldn't have come here," he spat, venom lacing his words. "You think you can confront me? You don't know what you're dealing with." The stranger stood steadfast, defiance radiating from every fiber. "I know exactly what I'm dealing with, monster," they replied, their voice rising defiantly. "Your time of terror is over." With a roar of fury, the abuser lunged, and instinct propelled me into action. I leaped forward, arms stretched wide, ready to take the blow if it meant protecting the innocent. In that instant, every doubt, every ghost of my past merged into this single moment of courage. I would not fail them. The atmosphere shifted palpably as both the burly man and the cook joined the fray, wielding kitchen utensils as makeshift weapons against the encroaching danger. The atmosphere crackled with adrenaline as a fierce determination ignited within every soul present. Together, for the first time, we stood united a refuge against darkness. But despite our unified front, uncertainty clawed at my mind. Could we really hold our ground? Emerging from years of personal shadows, the struggle to protect others was daunting. My past loomed heavily, gnawing at me. Could I trust my instincts this time? The cloaked figure advanced past me, drawing the attention of the abuser, who arched back, momentarily distracted. "Focus on me. Fight me if you must." I heard them shout as they maneuvered, their courage unyielding, daring to take control in our joint desperation. As chaos erupted, emotions writhed within me like a tide: fear, anger, and an enduring flicker of hope. I had one goal: to protect them at all costs. But in the maddening clamor, another realization washed over me. Here was no way to predict how this would end. Suddenly, as the din escalated, a piercing scream erupted outside. To my horror, all eyes turned to the diner windows. From where I stood, shadows loomed larger than life, and heaving breaths echoed around us. More figures emerged, just as sinister as the one we confronted. My instincts screamed that the world was closing in. Beside me, the mother clung to her child, the look of terror in her eyes translating into a parental urge to shield her baby. "What are we going to do?" she gasped, panic setting in as the malevolent shapes blurred together outside. "Everyone get ready," the burly man boomed. "We fight, or we run. There isn't much time." But in that moment, clarity washed over me. Is it too late to change our destiny? Did we really stand a chance against the tide of darkness? As I prepared to face the storm, I felt different. A sudden warmth coursed through me, whispering that losing this fight was not an option. But then, amidst the clatter of fear and anger, a revelation clutched my heart. The cloaked figure wasn't a stranger to me. Their eyes, once masked in the shadows, now shone with a striking familiarity. My heart stilled as recognition ground through my limbs. It couldn't be. I froze, stunned as the reality crystallized. But there was no time to process it, surged forward in belligerent confusion as the abuser lunged again, taking advantage of my momentary weakness. "Wait," I shouted, just as the entire world leaned toward an unfolding chaos. Would I be able to outrun the demons of my past and step into the light? Or would this moment echo into the dark abysm of despair from which I had both desperately clawed and resolutely tried to escape? The diner's door swung open, and with it came an icy gust, wrapping around us like a shroud. The shadows at the windows grew sinister and multiplied, their forms morphing and twisting under the pale glow of the streetlight. Panic rooted me momentarily, as shards of recognition fought to resurface amidst the chaos. "Focus," the cloaked figure shouted, still drawing the abuser's ire. Their voice cut through the rising tide of fear, and I found my vision narrowing to the immediate threats before us. I clenched my fists, reminding myself of every reason I was here, of every ounce of goodness that I wanted to protect. The cook brandished a frying pan, stepping forward protectively. Come on, people. We can't let them intimidate us. We have to stand together. His booming voice imbued a flicker of courage in the terrified gallery of patrons who were fitting themselves into a fragile formation around the mother and her child. Just stay behind me, I urged her, though inside I grappled with discomfort at the uncertainty of our chances. In that chaotic moment, the mother's grip on her child grew tighter, her eyes wide with raw fear. It mirrored my own, the desperation and dread pooling in the corners of my heart. We'll get through this, I promised, though the words felt thin against the reality unfolding. Suddenly, the figures at the window surged forward, faces obscured in shadow but glaring with intent. Angry voices erupted, drowning out the chaos within as the throng outside clamored for entrance. They were here for the abuser, that was clear, but what exactly would that mean for us? Do you know them? I asked the cloaked figure as the air around us turned thick with impending violence. My own heart raced while I struggled to process this unexpected reunion with a past that left me with scars of my own in no time to explain. They yelled back, "But we need to unite, all of us." Their focus remained unwavering on the abuser, who sneered defiantly while gauging the thin defenses of his opponents. In that moment of frenzied preparation, I felt the weight of possibility align with my heartbeat. I caught a glimpse of solidarity from the patrons around me, reinforced by the mother who, despite her fear, positioned herself behind me, an unspoken testament of trust in her eyes. Then, as if guided by a powerful force, the stranger gripped my arm tightly. "You may not know yet, but your strength is vital. Trust yourself." They reinforced my resolve, sparking a flicker of determination from deep within. With renewed clarity, I turned towards the mother, her expression shifting towards steel resolve as she placed herself closer to her child. It was a reminder of what we were fighting for and the undercurrent of courage that seemed to bind us all. In that electrifying heartbeat, everything became a blur. The crashing of chaos, the heated breaths of desperation, and faint whispers of hope that crept into the folds of our adrenaline-fueled reality. Then, time shattered. The abuser aimed a blow toward the cloaked figure just as they sidestepped, skilled and agile, causing confusion in his movements. In the ensuing distraction, the burly cook hurled the frying pan while the tension reached a fever pitch, crashing metal echoing around the diner. "Now," I shouted, and we surged forward together, a collective effort of defiance. It felt like the world condensed into our claustrophobic space, drowning us in noise, fear, and a shared purpose. But then, an unexpected growl sounded, twisting the atmosphere with an eerie shift. The door swung open and the immediate tension only burgeoned, revealing not just more figures, but something else entirely, an unsettling familiarity. My heart dropped as I recognized the man at the front. The memories rushed back, stark and painful. He was part of my past, a reminder of failures I had long tried to escape. Across the room, the cloaked figure seemed to notice too, their voice heightening as they turned to me, an alarmed intensity crossing their features. "Stay close," they warned fervently, rushing toward me amid the oncoming tide. "We can't let him get the upper hand again. You need to keep your focus." A chill gripped meth connection was undeniable. Not only did we have to confront a shared adversary, but also everything I had veiled behind years of distance was rushing back. As I stood there, my world split into fragmented reflections between the fight for our immediate safety and the clamor of my own past. If these shadows emerged victorious, what would become of the promise I made to protect the mother and her child? "We fight together," the cook bellowed again, rallying support as patrons steeled themselves beside us. My heart thundered, not just from the adrenaline, but from the stakes that had never felt so visceral. But before I could rally my strength, the cloaked figure turned and shouted, "Remember who you are. You have the power, use it." Their confidence poured into me like a balm against the torrent of apprehension swelling within. I was a protector now, bound by this fragile stranglehold of trust. And then, as blades were drawn and voices collided, a second growl reverberated from the night, urging the shadows forward. It echoed, a warning, a premonition of the storm to come. Another revelation fell upon me. This wasn't just about confronting the abuser, but a reckoning with everything I had evaded in the depths of my own past. Until, in a staggering moment that froze time around us, realization struck like a bolt of lightning. The abuser might not be the only threat haunting me tonight. The figure headed toward us, cloaked in shadows, who I thought I loathed, perhaps carried more relevance than I ever anticipated. Did they come to save me? Or was their arrival a harbinger of greater battles yet to unfold? The chaos surged, threatening to engulf everything. As I faced the specters of the past unresolved, unwieldy, and undeniably powerful. Would I possess the courage to embrace this whirlwind, or would it sweep away everything I held dear? The answer hung in the stillness before the storm, electrifying the air with dread and possibility in equal measure. The shouts and clangs of our confrontation reverberated in the confines of the diner, the sound clashing with the pounding rhythm of my heart. In that charging atmosphere, every face illuminated by the flickering fluorescent lights bore a portrait of fear and determination. Our unity buoyed by the shared resolve that surged through us. The cloaked figure urged me forward. Their presence by my side felt like a lifeline, igniting tiny sparks of hope in this tempest of despair. But that recognition, the face from my past, loomed like a shadow on the edges of my thoughts, distracting me, as if it were searching for an opening to resolve its unfinished business. Against the chaos, I fought to compartmentalize, to keep the concern for the mother and her child in focus. "We need to hold our ground," the cook shouted, swinging his makeshift weapon as if it would break the hold of fear that gripped the diner. "We won't back down. We fight for them." His fierce words struck a chord and flooded my chest with resolve. The mother squeezed her child protectively, but I caught the momentary flicker of strength reflected in her eyes, a force that reminded me that our fight was bigger than any solitary struggle. Just as the burly forms of our attackers pushed closer, I felt an urging tug at my sleeve. It was the cloaked figure, their expression firm yet pleading. "What's your plan?" they asked urgently, eyes locking onto mine. I can try to misdirect them," I replied, summoning whatever remnants of my past courage bubbled beneath the surface. "It'll draw their attention. You protect the mother and child." The moment seemed to strip me of indecision, as if my choice was the culmination of every lesson learned from my own fights every time I had turned my back on cowardice. Their voice sliced through the chaos, filled with urgency. "You need to remember, it's not just you against them. Not anymore." And with that, they locked eyes with me again, a reminder coursing through the air between user fates were intertwined that a sudden crash punctuated the chaos as the door burst under the force of another attack, splinters flying like projectiles. The crowd recoiled. The fear surged anew, igniting a desperate instinct within me. It morphed into a primal resolve as I stepped forward, gathering the few seconds of air that separated me from the confrontation. But as I advanced, my eyes were caught by the glint of steel reflecting off the dim light there, framed against the doorway, was the last person I expected to see. My brother. He had come, seemingly out of nowhere, face crafted by years of scars that mirrored mine, yet there was an alarming anguish in his gaze. "What are you doing here?" I shouted over the roar of chaos, wonder and confusion crashing into each other like twin waves. I couldn't fathom why he would show up in such a volatile moment. "That I can help," he bellowed back, raising up an arm as if to signal a truce amidst the tempest. But positioning himself now also seemed like an unintended distraction, drawing attention away from our immediate targets. My heart raced as I wrestled with the rush of emotions that churned within my ears of resentment and betrayal that had instigated a chasm between us. And there he stood, a man who had filled my past with shadows, but at this moment, he was as much a threat as he was a potential savior. "Get back," I shouted, recognizing the precarious balance we stood upon. But a knot twisted in my stomach as I felt as if I was tethered to two opposing realities, our history threatening to collapse into the present. The cloaked figure moved closer, their presence steadying me against the confusion. "Don't let your past dictate the future," they urged, but before I could respond, the abuser lunged, and chaos erupted once more. All the drama unfolding. I caught the mother's eyes. There was a flicker of desperation, a plea for action. "Stay with us," I implored, pushing through the uncertainty flooding my senses. "We'll get through this." I reached for the mother's hand and felt her trembling, a sign of the overwhelming burden carried through the night. Suddenly, the cook's voice rose above the noise. "Now's the time. We stand together." In that instant, strength permeated through the diner, sparked by shared fear, hope, and against all odds a strange kind of kinship. And as we prepared to surge as one, I caught a wink of my brother. It was a gesture wrapped in motivations I couldn't decode, layering uncertainty upon the already fragile alliance we constructed. Did he come to reconcile or disrupt? Each second stretched like a taut wire threatening to snap under the weight of unanswered questions. Yet as the storm descended upon us, I forced myself to breathe amid the turmoil. Hidden beneath layers of anger and history was the desire to forge a future where this chaos would not dictate the course of my life. The figure beside me squeezed my arm, their belief flooding me with a sense of purpose. Then, just as we coordinated our move toward the tide of confrontation ahead, a horrifying realization struck me. Looming threat from my brother danced dangerously close to our operatic fray. What if the price of my past was soon to collide, not only with my present, but the fragile future of that mother and her child? Would I risk everything only to face the duality of the bonds I had long sought to sever or mend? As the din of conflict enveloped us, I clenched my fists, determined to stand firm against whatever storm was about to break. The echoes of the past mixed with the cries of the present, propelling me into the fray as realization dawned. I was not just fighting for my own redemption. I was standing in the face of violence, fear, and ultimately, for the hope of something new. But the question remained, could we withstand this tempest, or would I find myself once again shattered, caught between battles fought long ago? As the roar of chaos carried through the air, I surged forward, propelled by the mix of fear and relentless hope. The world within the diner became a cyclone of emotions, voices blending into a cacophony as our collective breath quickened. The cloaked figure stood firm beside me, a quiet strength radiating from Thema's stark contrast to the turmoil churning in my gut. Together, we were guardians in the eye of the storm. Yet, the uncertainty regarding my brother loomed like a thundercloud overhead. He hovered near the entrance, a wild determination in his eyes, waiting for an opening to either aid or betray us. I wanted to believe he had come to help, that the blood between us had been redeemed by the seriousness of this moment. But every instinct I had, forged in the flames of our shared past, screamed for caution. I couldn't shake off his aura of betrayal, still stark against the earnest faces surrounding us. Focus. The cloaked figure drew me back into the present, their voice steadying. We need to act now. The cook had rallied some of the patrons, those still capable of movement, into a formation. Their makeshift weapons glinted with resolve, fueled by fear but sharpened by purpose. The mother clenched her child closer, her eyes wide pools of anxiety but deep within their depths. I glimpsed the reflections of resilience. I glanced one last time at my brother, that hint of vulnerability on his rugged face beckoning me to remember the boy I grew up with, the bond we once shared before it all shattered. Confronting him now felt like stepping into a crumbling paradigm. The fight we faced was immediate, yet it intertwined with struggles that had long been buried. We prepare for an onslaught, I whispered to the cloaked figure, rolling my shoulders as I positioned myself next to the mother and her child. If we go down, we go down together, if on cue. The figures of our attackers surged forward once more, their shadows crawling over the diner as the desperation in the air thickened. Shouts erupted, drowning out my racing heartbeat. With adrenaline coursing through me, I raised my makeshift weapon, an old barstool leg, and locked my gaze on the first body breaking through the threshold. But there was a heartbeat, a small flicker of light, a shift in the space around us. The cook, emboldened and leading the small group in a synchronized push, called out to the rest. "We know your pain. Your fight is our fight." His words jolted something within me. In that moment, even amidst the howling chaos, I realized that we were no longer merely acquaintances bound by mutual fear. We were a ragtag family forged by circumstance. I could feel the energy vibrate through the room, powerful and undeniable. "Let's show them." Another patron roared, bolstered by newfound courage. I joined the chorus, heart thrumming with a fierce cadence as we moved as one, a united front against the darkness that sought to engulf us. As the battle ensued, and our thrumming energy pushed back the tide, a chaotic flurry of strikes and parries erupted. I felt the impact of fists grazing past my cheek, the clatter of nearby weapons, but I kept my focus steadfastly on the mother and child, keeping them shielded behind me. Suddenly, amidst the chaos, pain materialized. The cloaked figure staggered back, clutching their side, a gleaming knife protruding ominously from their form. I felt a chill pierce through my senses. Time slowed as I processed the horror unfolding before me. I wanted to scream that it couldn't end like this. They couldn't leave. I had just begun to understand them. Get back, I shouted, moving without thought, but another figure's shadow skittering through the fray caught my eye. It was my brother. He had leaped into the sparring chaos, adding force to the moment, pushing back against the assailants in his reckless determination. For a split second, I felt the glimmer of a long-forgotten bond spark between us. Stay focused, he yelled, and though his voice was tinged with grit and desperation, it rang with the resonance of a shared history that left me retreating into my thoughts. For years, we were enemies instead of allies, our shared past wrapping around our relationship like a vice. The cloaked figure bore the sharp end of the fate I had desperately fought to outrun. They needed me, and the mother and child depended on me standing strong. The heart-wrenching urge to run to the cloaked figure and offer them solace clashed violently with the instinct demanding I fight on. As the momentum surged, fueled by our collective will, I swung the makeshift weapon with renewed purpose. The impact jarred through me, but I didn't relent. With each breath, the intensity of my struggle mounted. Then, through the haze of chaos, clarity struck. Beyond the surface of this immediate fight lay an urgent truth. My brother, despite our burdens, was here, making choices that could alter the course of our past. Looking over, I understood that I had to confront both the attackers and my own demons simultaneously. And just as the tide began to turn in our favor, the crashing sound of a distant siren wafted through the air, a beacon of hope on the horizon. But lurking within that flicker of possibility lay an unsettling dread. What if, amidst the relief brought by the arrival of help, my brother's actions revealed secrets meant to remain buried? I caught a fleeting glimpse of his gaze, determined, yet tinged with desperation, and I wondered, would his next choice blanket us in safety or plunge us deeper into chaos? As the confrontations reached a fever pitch, I was left standing at a precipice of hope and apprehension, knowing that the decisions made in the seconds that followed might forever alter the course of my life and the fragile future of the mother and her child. My heart raced, a relentless drum echoing the chaos that enveloped us. Each strike I made pushed me further into the fog of despair and hope, entangled in an unsettling dance with my brother, a man who was both a stranger and the ghost of a shared history. The cloaked figure sagged against the wall, a new specter of vulnerability that drew my attention like night to a moth. Stay back, I shouted as I swung the barstool leg wider, creating a barrier between the violent tide and those whose lives hung precariously in the balance. I caught a glimpse of the mother, her eyes a tumultuous swirl of fear and fierce protection, her child clinging tightly to her side. In that moment, she and her child became my anchor amidst the frantic chaos. I wasn't just fighting to survive, I was fighting for them. The sirens drew closer now, a cold reminder of potential salvation that felt almost within reach. Yet the reality was heavy, like a storm cloud pressing down upon us, each whisper of hope soaked in doubts. My brother moved with a reckless abandon that mirrored my own desire. But was it courage or desperation that drove him? I needed to know, to unfurl the tangled threads of our history amid the pressing darkness. Dustin, I yelled, voice straining against the din, we can't turn back now. This is it. He turned towards me, his face sharp against the scattered lights of oncoming help. Are you really going to allow that thing? He gestured at the cloaked figure, who was struggling to maintain their stance, to die for a stranger? They're not your family. The wound dug deeper, an echo of the life we had shared, the bond that had been carved and then all but obliterated by time and mistakes that lay strewn between us. I could see the flicker of anguish in his eyes, a shared remorse for what had transpired, a longing as palpable as my own. The charged air around us crackled with unspoken words twisted in the tailored shape of pain and regret. They aren't just a stranger, I countered, my voice steadier now. They're one of us. We're all we have left. For a breathless moment, Everything faded into a low hum, as if the world was holding its breath. In the distance, sirens wailed nearer, a whisper of hope amidst a maelstrom. I took a step toward him, bridging the chasm that felt like it widened with every year lost. But before I could reach out, shapes broke through the tumult. A new wave of attackers surged into the diner, their animosity thick in the air, drowning out the siren's promise. Instinct took over as I swung wildly, a desperate measure for a desperate time. For a split second, the core of my being ached for connection, for understanding, for reconciliation. My brother surged forward again, his fierce resolve now focused, but it felt fragile, suspended against the tension that crackled between us. With each encounter, I could feel the impact of my swings pulling me deeper into the turmoil, body against body, heart against heart. The danger not only loomed from outside but also lurked in the shadows of our shared history, the painful echoes of betrayal that still lingered. That I scooped the mother and child closer, and with each swing, I found strength in their presence. The mother squeezed my arm tightly, her grip a tangible lifeline. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice hoarse yet strident, embodying a fierce determination that sparked something deep within my own heart. Just as the tide of the battle began to turn, with us gaining ground, shouts of solidarity rising. People fighting for one another. An ear-splitting crash sounded from behind. The door flung open, and with it descended a chilling presence. More cloaked figures, identical to the first, their intentions clear as night, fell upon us once again. The crowd began to panic. A wave of noise surged forward in tumultuous retreat. I watched as chaos broke out anew, the fragile bonds we had forged dissolving under the weight of fear. I caught my brother's eye, the panic mirrored in his expression, but beneath the surface was something else, a flicker of dark determination. "If they take us down, we can't let them take her," he ground out, unyielding against the new threat. But he hesitated, and the moment stretched taut. The new figures swarmed further, and suddenly I felt it in a sharp pain slicing through the protective barrier I had formed. A knife much like the one that had struck the cloaked figure before caught my side, and I staggered back, gasping as the world spun from the initial impact. And oh, my brother's voice surged through the chaos like a clarion call. I locked eyes with him, a desperate surge of urgency coursing through me. It was in that instant that I realized he wasn't simply fighting for this moment. He was fighting for me. As darkness edged into my vision, the mother's scream splintered the air, threading itself into my consciousness. Just as the new attackers closed in, the flashes from the now blazing lights of sirens poured into the diner's sparkling rays, dancing through the shroud of violence in an unsteady glimmer of salvation. But underneath that flicker thrummed an insidious dread. What lay waiting beyond the door? Would we find a haven within the authorities waiting just outside, or was there a wider darkness nesting there, feeding off our shared fears? As I slipped into unconsciousness, the world faded, leaving only the haunting echo of my brother's voice trailing through the shadowing walls. Words of fear, words of hope, and the realization that our struggles might not be over. Not yet. A sharp jolt ignited my senses, pulling me from the depths of unconsciousness like a relentless tide. Bright lights pierced through the haze, blinding me for a fleeting moment before the outlines of the diner flickered back into focus. The air was thick with the acrid scent of smoke and fear, muddled with an unsettling sweetness that lingered from earlier. "Stay with me, please." A voice, frenetic and layered with worry, wrapped around my consciousness. It was the mother, trembling yet fierce, as she clutched my hand with a grip that belied her small stature. "We need you. You can't go. We need you to fight." A sensation of warmth spread through me, igniting the embers of strength that had begun to fade. My body throbbed with pain, a painful reminder of the knife that had pierced my side. The chaos around us loomed like shadows, but her voice anchored me, offering a fragile lifeline in the swirling storm of terror. My brother, where was he? Panic surged anew as I attempted to turn my head. Desperate images darted across my mind. The cloaked figures, the knife, the bare moment of hope when the sirens roared. My heart raced as I forced air into my lungs, each breath shallow and painful. "Dustin." The words slipped from my lips, a prayer wrapped in desperation. The panic in my chest threatened to eclipse the flickering sense of hope that remained. Here, he appeared next to me, eyes wide, a frantic worry etched into the lines of his face. He knelt by my side, a makeshift defiance against the chaos still swirling around us. "You're awake. Just hold on. Help will be here soon." I nodded, the effort sending jolts of agony through me, but understanding glimmered between us. Whatever distance had existed, the weight of years and mistakes began to feel lighter in the face of this burgeoning crisis, stitched together by raw necessity and the bond of family. "Stay near her," I gasped, my voice hoarse yet unwavering. She needs someone." As I spoke, the mother's expression shifted. Beneath her fear, there was a hint of determination as she quietly took the child's hand and stepped closer. In that electric moment, we formed a shield around the little family, a fragile but fierce unity against the encroaching darkness. More sirens blared outside, their wails weaving into the fabric of chaos. But the diner felt like a paradox of stillness and dread. The world beyond our barricade was rife with uncertainty. Were they here to help us, or simply another mark in the growing chaos? My brother swept his gaze to the entrance, where flickering lights wreathed the looming cloaked figures. Their faces were obscured, shadowed by the weight of intent, and dread clawed at the edges of my mind. The authorities, what if they're here for them? Dustin's voice trembled slightly, the air around his words crystallizing into stark reality. I clutched my side, a wave of pain washing over me, but I staved it off, pushing through the growing darkness. "No, we can't let them get out of this." As we prepared to divert our focus back to our shared fight, I called upon every ounce of resolve buried deep within. "We fight together. That's what we do, right?" The cloak of fear momentarily lifted as we exchanged determined glances, a mutual pact formed in the flames of desperation. I was not just Dustin's brother, nor he my ghost. We were allies twisted and tarnished by scars of our past, yet unified in this moment. In defiance against the shadows pressing upon us on the count of 3, he whispered, blue eyes boring into mine like twin beacons of hope. 1, 2. My heart quickened as we stood together, the mother and her child nestled closely in the cocoon we formed, ready to take on the darkness that threatened to consume us. 3. We shouted together, and for that fleeting second, our voices rose above the cacophony, harmonizing a defiance that reverberated through the walls of fear. Together, we surged into the fray, bearing our hearts against the storm. But the fractured reality of our situation surged back with a vengeance. One cloaked figure wrenched itself away from the corner, darting toward us with the purpose of a predator. But then, just as the figure lunged forward, I noticed a change. One of the other cloaked figures hesitated, momentarily distracted, caught in a moment of hesitation that felt oddly vulnerable amidst the violence. An unexpected hand shot out, a glint of steel flashing in the dim light that I blinked, heart pounding, as I watched a knife sail through the air and strike the hesitant figure right in the chest. The cruel twist of fate painted it on a canvas of blood, sending ripples of shock through every onlooker. My heart thrummed against my ribs as recognition seized me. The face beneath the cloak was one I recognized, someone I had trusted at one point, someone who had slipped through the shadows into this swirling chaos now before me. As I processed the moment, they fell to the floor lifeless, drawing the gaze of all in the diner and drawing me, unwittingly, into a fresh whirlpool of uncertainty. That I turned to my brother and the mother, the world spinning threateningly around us once more. "What have we stumbled into?" I whispered, dread curling its cold fingers around my heart, for the revelations were far from over, and the chaos still unfurling promised a darkness deeper than we could have ever imagined. A silence descended in the diner, thick and suffocating, as the figure collapsed, oblivion claiming them with cruel swiftness. The air crackled with tension, and all eyes turned to me, questioning, alarmed, as if I held the answers that were rapidly unraveling around us. "Dustin," I breathed, my pulse quickening, flooding my thoughts with memories of the past and of that face, now lost in the darkness. That was Ivan. The name fell heavy into the air, splintering the fragile peace we had built. My brother's eyes widened, disbelief mingled with recognition. "You knew him?" "I did. He was a friend." I stumbled over the words, haunted by the shadows of old loyalties and regrets. My thoughts spiraled, trying to chase down the realization of Ivan's descent into the very chaos we now faced. Was this a betrayal or a twist of fate that brought us to this moment? The mother clutched her child closer, the look on her face shifting from fear to a muted horror that eclipsed the choking dread that had engulfed me. Do you think he was part of this? I finished her thought, the implication sending chills cascading down my spine. I don't know. This isn't just random, there's something deeper here. Panic surged again, but it was tempered by an unexpected flicker of defiance. The cloaked figures had momentarily faltered, their focus disrupted by our shared horror of what had just unfolded. It felt like a pause in Tamiya, a moment suspended between chaos and clarity. Dustin stepped forward, pushing against the swell of anxious energy, a burgeoning sense of resolution flickering in his eyes. We can't just sit here. We need to get out, find help, or whatever this is. Before I could respond, the mother tightened her grip on her child, her brow furrowed with concern. But the police might still be out there. If Ivan was part of this, then they could be dangerous too. A profound somberness washed over me, understanding blooming between us. The lines had blurred, the good and evil in our world contorted into a dark tapestry of confusion. Outside the diner, the sirens continued, their wails an unsettling reminder of the precarious balance of safety and danger. We need a plan, I insisted, the urgency burgeoning beneath the weight of our uncertainty. Otherwise, we're just waiting to become part of this chaos. Dustin nodded resolutely, pure determination masking the fear pinching at his heart. What if we use the back entrance? It might lead to the alley and through to the street. If we move fast, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within the looming gloom. Right. It's risky, but we don't have a choice. We shared a collective breath of resolve. An unexpected warmth embraced USA gesture from our small circle. The mother shifted slightly to shield her child with her body, her eyes filled with snippets of gratitude despite the terror looming larger than ever. In that moment, she seemed to embody the goodness that lingered, however estranged from us, and I realized we were not just protecting her, but kindling a sense of hope and solidarity in our desperate situation. Thank you. For everything, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I met her gaze, the truth ringing clear. We're in this together now. With a shared nod, our bond solidified beneath the relentless pressure. We gathered our breaths as we made our way to the back. The dimly lit diner felt like it could swallow us whole, every creak of the floorboards beneath us echoing our anxiety as we edged closer to freedom. Just as we reached the back door, something shifted in the shadows, an ominous movement that pulled my focus away from the thin sliver of light waiting outside. The cold grip of dread crawled back up my spine as I peered into the darkness, feeling danger reestablish its hold on us. One of the cloaked figures materialized, flanked by two others, their intentions evident. Going somewhere? One of them sneered, the menace in their voice sending tremors through the in a heartbeat. They surged forward, and my heart plunged as I realized the balance of unity was about to shatter. I grabbed Dustin's shoulder, a silent plea for action, but the weight of our pasts bore down upon us, intertwining with the urgency of the moment, reminding us that choices had consequences. Run, I shouted, as the cloaked beings pressed closer, the world exploding into chaos around us. In that instant, the mother squeezed my hand, her grip fierce yet ignited with hope. But then a crushing realization hit, like a wavy fragment of instinct warning me about the relentless loop of fate we were ensnared within. The consequences could be beyond our control. The chaos unfolded, and the fabric of our attempt to escape unraveled piece by piece. I found myself staring into the eyes of one of the approaching figures, not a stranger, but a familiar face concealed by shadows. The pang of recognition sliced through me with a mixture of betrayal and disbelief. You? Was all I could manage. The world narrowed down to the moment, the surrounding chaos fading into a tumultuous silence. Everything hinged on the revelation of that single word. Behind the cloak lay not just a threat, but a connection to my past that threatened to unravel everything I believed I understood about loyalty, sacrifice, and survival. And then they spoke, the singular word heavy between us, surprise. The word cut through the air, shattering the fragile illusion of safety we had clung to. Surprise. It echoed through the diner like a haunting refrain, dragged forth from the shadows of my past. I stood frozen, heart racing, grappling with the weight of that single syllable, a blunt reminder of how impossibly tangled our lives had become. The cloaked figure stepped closer, revealing the contours of a face I thought I'd left behind the scars, the haunted eyes, the familiarity that once brought warmth but now sent a chill racing through my veins. "Kaya?" I managed to whisper, disbelief clawing at my heart. It felt surreal, as if we were caught in a whirlwind of confusion that blurred the lines of my current reality with the remnants of my tumultuous past. And as I took in the depth of her gaze, the tension spiraled around us, wrapping us in an ominous embrace. "We don't have time for this," Dustin interjected, voice laced with urgency, but I couldn't peel my eyes away from Kaya, standing there once a friend, once a light in my darkness, now an embodiment of the chaos I desperately tried to escape. How had she become entwined in this narrative? I barely recognized the woman before me. The fire in her eyes had dimmed, replaced by frustration and something far more dangerous: resignation. "What are you doing here?" I demanded, the weight of my emotions swirling like a tempest. Was this reunion a chance for redemption, or was it another layer of betrayal shrouded in a familiar face destined to haunt me? "What you've always known," she replied, voice steady. "I came to end this madness and save my sister." The revelation hit like a tidal wave. "Your sister?" I echoed, confusion fogging my thoughts. I searched her eyes for answers, for clarity in the unfolding chaos. The air thickened, the memories of nights steeped in shared laughter intertwined with the cries of long-forgotten conflict surged, battling for dominance in every corner of my mind. "Monica is still in this," Kaya continued, shadows dancing across her features. "She's fighting for her life, too. And all of this," she gestured to the clamor surrounding us, to the diner we'd made our battleground. "None of it matters if we don't put an end to the cycle of violence that suffocates families." With every word she spoke, the pieces started to align within the riddle of my existentia, thread of hope weaving through the chaos. "You're part of this fight," I breathed, the dawning reality filling me with a sense of renewed purpose. I turned to the mother, who stood clutching her child, her eyes wide with confusion but also a flicker of understanding. I knew we all yearned for safety, for the promises of a life unshackled from pain. "Yes," Kaya said, exuding a determination that ignited an ember within my core. "I'm here to help break this cycle, and we can't let fear dictate our choices. We have to act now." But just as I began to comprehend the weight of what she was saying, the other cloaked figures advanced, blocking our path to escape, their presence casting long, foreboding shadows against the diner walls. Fear crept back, wrapping around my resolve. Yet, that flicker of hope burned fiercely now, the possibility that we might reclaim not only our lives, but also the lives of all surrounding us. "Everyone," I shouted, my voice rising above the murmurs of confusion. "We need to fight together. For Kaya, for Monica, for the victims we've left behind." Every person in the diner, every heart made heavy by the weight of violence and fear, turned to me with wide eyes. Professionals, strangers, and family alike, we were bonded in our shared fear and love for those who mattered, and we had to stand against this tide. Dustin stepped beside me, resilience dawning anew. "We're not just fighting for our freedom, this is our chance to reclaim our purpose. We cannot be treated as victims anymore." A chorus of agreement rippled through the crowd, strengthening me, filling me, coaxing me to channel the volatility swirling around us into palpable strength. The mother's grip on my hand tightened, and I could see the determination flicker in her eyes, a mirror of the fierce fight brewing within me. A fragile yet unbearable truth emerged in that moment: we were not alone. With Kaya leading the charge, we surged forward, a desperate formation against the dark tide, adrenaline igniting every fiber in our beings. Together, we became an unbroken line, a wall of humanity standing stalwart against the shadows that had shrouded our lives, emboldened by shared understanding, solidarity, and love. An unexpected burst of energy surged through the group as we pushed back against the figures blocking our path. I could feel the warmth emanating from the mother and child at my side as they lent their strength to fuel my own, and Kaya, driven by determination, forged ahead into the chaos, ready to face the demons of her past. and then the thunder rang out. A cacophony of energy erupting as fists flew and the defenses of our small world clashed against the darkness. Each clash reverberated with the promise of redemption. I fought through every blow, the pain grounding me in purpose, the mother, child, and Kaya threading their arms around me as we stood as one, defying the onslaught that threatened to consume us. As the battle raged on, something began to crystallize, understanding that forgiveness might not mean erasing our past, but reconciling it, grappling with the echoes of decisions made and the courage to move forward. Each conflict, each memory, each passerby who felt lost had brought us to this moment, forging connections in anguish, offering a flicker of light amidst the darkest struggles. And then, just as we found a synchronized heart, a medley of strength woven through the fray, hope surged forward in waves, heavier than I could have imagined. A voice broke through the haze, a booming call from the outside, drawing our focus like bees to nectar. Please. This is the police. We're coming in. The weight of the world shifted. The cloaked figures surrounding us faltered, their unity rippling under the pressure of dawning realization that salvation lay just beyond reach. A frantic tension hung in the air as they turned toward the diner's entrance, unsure of what this could mean for their dominion over our fates. For a fleeting heartbeat, I allowed myself to breathe, sensing for the first time that the tides may have shifted in our favor. I turned to Kaya, to the mother and child, to everyone standing beside us, and our eyes locked in silent understanding, not just of what we had endured, but what lay ahead. We would face whatever came with open arms, with unyielding resolve. Just then, the door swung open, flooding the dim diner with brilliant light, illuminating our united front against the darkness. And in that moment, all of our struggles coalesced into something extraordinary, a symphony forged through the pain, a testament that despite the shadows that fell upon us, we would rise again. As the police poured in, chaos erupted as officers separated the hostiles from the innocent, their authority restoring order against the raging storm swirling around us. And amidst that life-altering moment, my heart soared, lifted not by victory, but by the understanding that we had fought not for individual salvation, but for each other. While wounds would take time to heal, scars worn proudly became badges of honor. As the dust settled and the sun began to rise, casting a golden hue through the remnants of our struggle, I turned to Kaya, a smile breaking through my weary countenance. "Thank you for coming back," I said, words spilling from my heart. Maybe redemption would not be easy, but we had clawed our way back to each other in this labyrinthine journey of life, a testament to the irreplaceable bond we nurtured through years of conflict and resolution. As the morning light bathed us, illuminating the bruises that mirrored our pasts, I realized finally that perhaps forgiveness was not just a destination. It was a journey, and we were steadfastly traversing that ever-unfolding tapestry together. In the end, as I gazed at the mother cradling her child, I understood this as what it meant to truly fight for life. Together, we would continue to navigate the currents of pain and hope, etching out our place in a world brighter than the shadows that once defined us. And as I took a deep breath and stepped forward into the dawn, I whispered to the universe, "We've found our way back. And from now on, we'll pave a new path, together."